Hello, welcome everyone who joined us. The media center of Ukrinform Ukraine continues its work. The full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor on our land is ongoing, and I'm thankful to everyone who shares news of this war with the world. Now I would like to introduce our speaker, Prymus, Deputy Head of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine on Digital Development and Transformation and Digitalization. Roman, let's speak about the completion of our testing of the Community Emergency Notification System. I guess everyone, almost every citizen of Ukraine has felt what it's like. I think there have been a lot of memes dedicated to how our citizens were caught by this testing everywhere. So what are the results of this work? What else do you need to do, and what have you succeeded in? Hello, thank you. Indeed, over this period we have also received a lot of feedback, both fun feedback and serious feedback. To be serious, we completed testing that we held between the 7th and the 23rd of September. Overall, we sent 8 notifications in every region over this period. Why did we have to send this many? Because every time after we sent this notification during the same day and on the next day we found out what the shortcomings were, we worked on those shortcomings, and then we held the testing again to check whether the system worked. To be honest, the testing itself had to take longer, but we were able to ensure that on Wednesday, ahead of the completion of our testing, we already received satisfactory results. We have set up the notification center, which sends out these notifications. Thanks to the support of mobile operators, we set up the permission for this notification in their systems, and we saw positive results in terms of the number of users who received this notification. And basically, thanks to this, on Friday we tested the system again. We saw that the system worked, and that's how we completed the system testing. Overall, as for effectiveness, I can say already that at the beginning of the testing period we had 41% of reach of our users that we held. Now, at the end of testing, the system has reached 67% of coverage. This is quite a good result for a system which we had to implement rather quickly. We are going to work on increasing this figure. Mostly we were able to improve the results by working together with mobile operators, because the signal was transferred through every system so that the coverage would be happening across Ukraine. And also we work with suppliers of smartphones, mobile telephones. We were able to set up individual models to ensure that they would be receiving those notifications over the testing period. Something that's very important is sending notification across the territory of Ukraine. We wanted to check the workload on the network. We made sure that this all worked even with full load. In very rare cases, of course, it's very rare that we're going to need notifications across the territory of the country. Mostly it's going to be a regional event, but we see that there is this opportunity. We see that it works. The third highly important component is the speed of notification delivery, because all systems that we work in have their own shortcomings. For instance, text messages can arrive even several hours later, which is completely ineffective for a notification system. Applications that we have this shortcoming that if there is no stable internet connection, they aren't going to work either. This system works with any type of signal, even the minimum mobile signal, and notifications took 20 to 30 seconds to be delivered, which is quite a good result. We had cases of delay of up to a minute. That was when the user was between two base stations, so there was a switch between two base stations. In those cases, the user could receive two notifications at once or receive one notification but slightly later. But these are technicalities. The most important thing is that we can say that the testing is overall successful and we can continue working on full-scale deployment of this system. Of course, during the entire testing period, every time when we send these messages, we saw shortcomings. In some cases, there was equipment that didn't work in certain territories, for example, equipment of the mobile provider's network. This happened in Kyiv during the first day of testing when the signal failed in the city completely. We found what the shortcoming was, we eliminated this, and we fixed everything, and it worked since then. And in every territory we had certain peculiarities. We had to set up equipment together with operators because they are the key deliverers of these notifications. In addition, like I already said, we were able to set up operational systems of most smartphones, and now iOS phones were produced since 2015 and Android phones since 2018 all receive these messages. Now we are working on delivering messages on phones which are earlier models, but we urge our users to update their operational systems on their phones if it is possible. We have some shortcomings with 2G networks, that is the old types of phones. Some of them don't receive messages. Objectively, we can say that there are certain phones, some outdated models which may not necessarily support this. In that case, of course, the person will have to receive the notification through other means like loudspeakers, but we are going to keep working on increasing the number of phones that are able to receive notifications delivered by the system. Indeed, we had a number of appeals from citizens on social media and directly. People wanted to have clarifications why a person receives a message. They some of them asked to disconnect those messages. We explained it to them, and I would like to reiterate right now that we do not violate people's privacies. We don't know where the subscriber is located. We don't know their phone number. We do not track any of that at all. The system works in a very different way from a text message. While a text message is sent to a specific phone number and we can know which people were the ones receiving this message specifically, we send notifications to the base stations, and the base station sends out this notification to every subscriber within its network automatically. I can say that we also analyzed international experience of how the system works in other countries. It is quite common. It works in the UK, in Italy, in Denmark, in the United States, in the UAE, Saudi Arabia. This is quite a broadly used system. Its deployment usually took a year and a half to 2 years in these countries. So we used international experience as well in order to deploy this system. Now we are also working to improve this system and to include it in the comprehensive notification mechanism. Roman, indeed, there were many questions. I would like to discuss once again. The testing mode is complete. So now, if the person is receiving this message, this notification now, what can it be about? What should the response be? These will be notifications which will be about direct threats to a person's life and health. These notifications will be sent out by local authorities, that is military civil administrations, further oblast administrations after the martial law is over. These notifications will be related to all kinds of threats, starting from dangerous weather phenomena, I mean really dangerous, not just weather forecast, like hurricanes or forest fires, which we had last year in the Chernobyl area or in Zhytomyr Oblast, or these can be chemical threats if the resident is located next to a chemical enterprise and there was an accident or a leak. It can also be a threat of radiation, particularly for people who are located in the area near nuclear power plants, earthquakes. So these can be very different notifications which are directly related to threats to people's health and lives. This can also be emergency evacuation in certain territories. The benefit of this system is that we can choose a very localized territory and notify people in this particular territory that they need to take certain action. Further information will be delivered the following way. It will be brief information about what is the nature of the threat, and the second section will be the guidelines for action. 37% that 33% that you weren't able to reach. You said that these are people who don't have a phone or have an outdated model, right? Mostly yes. In most cases, these are telephone models which currently don't support the system, and we are working on improving this. But of course, there are also people who have disabled these notifications, and we urge people to enable these notifications because the testing period is now over, and from now on these notifications will be real. We have information for most smartphone models how this can be done on our website, because in some phones and smartphones these notifications are disabled automatically. So if a person wants to receive a notification, they need to enable them. Of course, there are also mobile phones which were purchased, so to say, unofficially, and we had this a question because sometimes people would receive notifications in a foreign language if we delivered a message with a certain language component. Unfortunately, we cannot change this, just like the volume, just like we cannot adjust anything else on the user's phone settings. Are there any questions? Yes, I'm Zubko, Ukrinform. First, I want to ask, you said that you would be improving this system. In this case, won't there be more testing? That's the first question. And second question, if people do receive a notification, they receive guidelines how they should act, but can people read these guidelines somewhere? Now, thank you for the question. First, the testing will not be held additionally anymore. We held testing for launch of the system, understanding the concept of its work. Now there is only improvement. This can be done in the process of our work. We don't need to hold more testing in order to achieve this. This will be already based on the result that we have obtained today. As for guidelines, how to act in certain cases, we don't have ready-made instructions for every case because every emergency situation can be very peculiar. In some cases, for example, if there is a chemical threat, it's enough to close your window, and in other cases, you have to evacuate. So these instructions will be very short. These messages cannot be long by their nature. It's just the nature of the threat and the specific action that the user needs to take, or a link to a certain additional source of information where the user can obtain more data. If there is a threat to a person's health and life, we can, let's say there is a fire. We can say there is a forest fire next to you. Please evacuate. The evacuation point is at the following address. Or we can say there is an emergency, turn on the radio or the TV and listen to detailed instructions about what you need to do. This is necessary so that the person should be ready for an emergency. That's the idea of identification system, because now it works the following way. Now there is a signal of the loudspeaker. This means that everyone needs to pay attention, and then every person should know that they need to turn on the radio or TV to find out what happened and what to do. We somewhat decrease this algorithm because based on our identification, the person knows what happened. We have another subject that we want to discuss with you, Roman. It is the work of your units in Kharkiv Oblast. We understand that the SES units are serving there in a reinforced mode. What is happening there and what results can we already speak about? Indeed, we have quite a few units working there, over 250 rescue workers already there, first responders working on site. They are diffusing landmines because about half of them are landmine diffusing experts. Since the 8th of September, when we started working there, we have already diffused over 11,000 explosives. We have already covered 637 hectares of territory for dangerous objects, and now the main task is studying roads and infrastructure networks, water supply, power supply, and sewage networks. We have studied quite a few roads in order to ensure that there can be available transportation, because there are constantly crashes in the power grid and our emergency services have to go there. In addition, our first responders have participated in the exhumation of bodies. This is quite a big job, and another part of our teams that I have mentioned, they are working on clearing up debris. It is mostly social infrastructure, the premises of public authorities, and also the housing of our residents in order to give people an opportunity to go back home as much as possible. Based on what you saw working with explosives, can we already say that there are weapons forbidden by international conventions there? Of course, naturally, we see across the territory that such weapons are used, including cluster weapons, which are used there in Kharkiv Oblast as well. There are also anti-infantry landmines, which are very hard to find with landmine storage devices, and now we are purchasing more equipment that can detect such landmines because they are very hard to detect automatically. It requires special devices. And I want to say that the landmines are definitely used not just to stop the troops of the Ukrainian army. They are purposefully mining and the civilian infrastructure. You mean to harm the population? Yes, to harm the population, to demoralize the population, to slow down restoration of activity in those areas. So those are the targets that are being pursued. They are non-military targets. Thank you very much. Thank you for finding the time to join us. We have been with Roman Prymus, Deputy Head of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, on digital development. Thank you very much. We believe in our armed forces and we continue working for the sake of our victory. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes.